Mandukya Karika. Om Bhadram Karne Bhishinuyama Deva Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatra Sthirairangaye Tustuvagung Sastanubhi Vishema Deva Hitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashava Swasti na Pusha Vishwaveda Swasti nastakshyo aristanemi swasti no brihaspatir dadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Those of you who have joined the class for the first time, I'll request you to listen to the previous 3 talks. Fortunately, this is only the 4th talk. And right now, we are in the middle of the most complicated discussion. After this, discussions will become easier. Just that the arguments that they use and truths that they reveal are pretty profound, and they can be so counterintuitive that your mind refuses to accept them. Excuse me. Excuse me. And those of you who have taken admissions in our Indian Spiritual Heritage courses, I especially request them to listen from talk number 1. That will make things easy for them. So, in the previous talk, that is mantra number 1, it was described how Om is everything. And the discussion was pretty intense. And my one request is that in case you find any of these discussions difficult, please listen to that talk again. If you fail to understand, at least listen once more. And you have difficulty understanding, then you can send us a mail, ishrkm@gmail.com. I'm just writing. Sorry. You can send us a mail in case you have any difficulty understanding. But before that, I'll request you to listen to the talk at least thrice, because we try to present things as logically and in as simple a way as possible. Now, before we continue with mantra number 2, I like to draw your attention to certain fundamental things about Vedanta. Some of these things we discussed in our first talk where we explained what Vedanta is. But because it's a running topic, some of these ideas we will have to explain again, and again. And see, Vedanta is not a system of belief. Think of a political system. Think of a political system. It runs on belief. Just a second. I will have to interrupt the class today. Gyaneshwari Sharma, no, we have not yet started on Zoom. We are actually still waiting for Corona period to subside, so that once it subsides, we'll work out how to do it. Right now, we are delivering these as talk. So till situation improves, you will have to bear with us. Vedanta, unlike any religious system or a thought process or a political system, it is not a belief system. Take, for example, Christianity or Vaishnava traditions in India, they're entirely on belief. Someone saw something, someone has experienced something. Of course, he's a great sage, no doubt about it. I mean, Jesus is a prophet, no doubt about it. After that, everything is faith, faith, belief. Now, naturally, the rational minds attack them and they cannot defend. And the only defense they have is with, well, this is my belief, this is my faith system. And there are people in certain systems, they will come out with swords. Even we are attacked regularly. Vedanta is not at all like that. On the one hand, it is based entirely on spiritual realization of the greats and not of one person minded. That's a very important thing. We have series of saints. Sometimes that series is mentioned as in, say, Mandukya Upanishad and in Chandogya, in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and in many other Upanishads, the names are not mentioned. For example, in Ishavasya Upanishad and in Mandukya Upanishad itself, there is no name as such. But more important than that is, you can place the entire thing very logically. Third, you too can realize this truth. These are the three very important facets of Vedanta, which cannot be matched by any system of thought, cannot be matched by any religion. You know, let me tell you a very interesting joke. It's a fact, but it came out as a joke. When during Gorbachev's time, USSR started disintegrating, so the idea of a communist state had failed. So an elderly lady asked Gorbachev, who was telling that communism is an experiment. There's a famous statement. Those of you who are familiar with communism would know. Communism is an experiment. Socialism is an experiment. That elderly lady asked, Mr. President, sir, is socialism a biological experiment or a social experiment? Gorbachev thought for a moment and said, it's a social experiment. The elderly lady said, now I understand. Had it been a biological experiment, it would have been first tried on mice, rats. What kind of experiment you are talking about? What kind of belief system you are talking about? Vedanta is not an experiment. Vedanta is not a belief system. It is based on hardcore realizations. And not by one or two, not in a particular age. Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, Ramana Maharshi, they all had the same realization. And it's based on very sound arguments. Most importantly, you too can realize it. Jesus was born to take our sins on himself. That means Jesus is unique. And I am a born sinner according to Christianity, not in Vedanta. Vedanta will say if Swami Vivekananda could realize this truth, you too can. Intrinsically, at the spiritual level, you have the same potential of knowledge that, say, Swami Vivekananda or Ramana Maharshi had. In this relative world, you two are not same. That's a different issue. But as far as spiritual knowledge is concerned, as far as knowledge of Vedanta is concerned, you are same. This is a fundamental difference. And now see what happens. Most people cannot think. It is beyond the capability of human mind to be rational. It is absolutely beyond. We talk about rationality. You know, the great Albert Einstein, his famous theory of relativity, it changed the world. Hitler had 50 scientists written a book. Why 50 scientists, or was it 100? I'm not very sure. Say that theory of relativity is wrong. So when the book reached Albert Einstein, he just looked at the title and kept it aside. His wife asked, "Won't you like to read it?" Einstein says, "If I were wrong, one scientist would have been enough." The moment you are having 50 scientists, it means you're trying to prove something which is not true. This is your scientific community. And the same Albert Einstein, he refused to believe that atomic bomb can be made out of E equal to mc square. He himself refused to believe that universe is expanding. He refused to believe that there can be black holes. Rationality is a very difficult thing. It comes with a huge premium. Those people who say that we are rationals know that they are the blindest of believers of certain system. As for their system, they consider that rational. Outside that, everyone is irrational. Vedanta doesn't go that way. My one request, for certain reasons, I have to keep the chat on. I request you not to share your knowledge and wisdom on the chat. It's very annoying. So, this is whatever we are discussing here, these are not something that we need to believe in. These are hardcore facts, truths realized by many sages, truths that are extremely rational, truths that anyone can realize. You don't have to run to a book that my book says this, my book says that. No. Although it is here in this book, Upanishads say like that, we do say. When we say that Upanishads say like that, the three essential conditions of continuity of spiritual wisdom, number two, the rationality of it, and third, provability. Anyone can have the same experience. These three are taken for granted. This is the second very important thing that we need to understand. See how difficult Vedanta is to understand. We will be discussing three states of existence. Now, three states of mind actually. Actually, it's three states of mind, but the discussion here will be the four states of Atman. Or you can say four quarters of Atman, depending on how you understand it. This we will explain. First one they say is waking state. Second is dream state. Third is dreamless state. Now see how difficult Vedanta is to explain in English. How difficult it is to explain to non-Indians. We have very clear terms. Waking is Jagrat, dream is Swapna, dreamless is Sushupti, and there is a fourth, Chat Turiya, the fourth, Chat. Chatwari in Sanskrit means Chaturth, means fourth. Cha is generally removed and they call Turiya. In English, you don't even have the term for the third, forget fourth. First one is waking, second is dream. They don't have a unique word even for dreamless. That shows how constricted their philosophical understanding is. Because, for example, when Immanuel Kant started writing philosophy, He came up with new words because he felt that the existing lexicon, existing words were not enough to express his ideas. So he came up with new words. And he took pages just to explain what those words meant. You talk to any Indian, he will say Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. The idea that the mind, that is the experiences that we have three: Jagrat, that is waking; Swapna, dream; and Sushupti, dreamless. Now, in English, instead of a term, they have dream and less. And Turiya, the fourth. There is no way that religions brought up in dualistic traditions, dualistic thought process, and verse based on a book can even understand these things. So you will have to understand these three states very well to understand the concept of Atman or reality of Atman. The third thing in this series, which you need to keep in mind, that as we mentioned, that these are the words of the sages who had realized the truth. They were pure. They had done sadhana and tapasya for years. They had no selfish motive. Absolutely no selfish motive. Why shouldn't we believe them? And when they say that you too can realize this, they say that micro and macro, the individual and the universal, or rather individual and the collective, are made on the same plan. There are many expressions for this. One of them is Yat Brahmande Tat Pindande. Whatever is in the cosmos, that is universe, is in an atom. Now, physics people will say how far that is true. What they mean to say, if you, those of you who have some background of mathematics, you will understand it by the idea of fractals. In fractals, they say that there is a particular design, and that design keeps repeating. And when you see the whole, actually, it's a pattern made up of the individual. The Hindu thought process, is strictly on the lines of fractals. And if you take a sample from somewhere and if you study it, you'll find that the entire thing has the same pattern. Those of you who try to solve equations that related to infinities, and our famous mathematician Ramanujan, who did lots of research on the equations who tend to be infinite in series, what they do is they cut anywhere and solve that and then apply it universally. Vedanta doesn't force this idea down our throat, telling that, look, we are telling that individual and universal are same. What they say that, here is the individual. Now take all the individual together. That is not a crowd, but the whole cosmos. And the terms that you use here with the properties, change the terms, have the same properties. Finished. It's so simple. Actually, that's what I keep telling, that Vedanta is so grand. It's the ideas of Vedanta, so simple, and otherwise so grand. Think of a classroom. In a classroom, there are kids. Take one kid, and then take the collective lot, the whole lot. The general property of one and the general property of that class is nearly the same. As far as intrinsic thing is concerned, intrinsic means as far as learning is concerned. Say, for example, we have students of, say, class 4, standard 4. They are learning, one student is learning certain basics of, say, mathematics. The entire class is learning the same thing. This is fractal. This is the idea of fractal. And this is something Vedanta relies upon completely and fully. So if you keep these two ideas in mind, first, the three states, rather four. Second, micro and macro, the individual and the collective. Then understanding the next three, four mantras will be very easy. So with that introduction, we enter mantra number 2. Sarvam hi etat Brahma. I am Atma Brahma. So I am Atma Chatuspahat. I have requested one of our students, Madhurima, to type the Sanskrit and also the English. And you'll find transliteration is also there, so you can read it easily. Sarvam etat Brahma, I am Atma Brahma, so I am Atma Chatuspat. In passing, let me mention, in the Vedantic tradition of monks, like we belong to Vedanta tradition of monks, there are 4 Mahavakyas known as 4 great truths. And every monk, if he belongs to the line of Shankaracharya, they are known as Dashanami. There are 10 Sampradayas. They have one of these 4 Mahavakya as the mantra for sadhana. One of them is this: I am Atma Brahma. I am Atma is very famous. I am Atma Brahma. This Atman, this self, me, I am Brahman. Same as Am Brahmasmi. I am Atma Brahma. I am Atma Brahma. Says, in the first mantra it was mentioned, first mantra, if you might remember, Om Ityetat Aksharam Idam Sarvam. Om, which is Ekakshari, is everything. And now it says, Atman, Sarvam Etat Brahma. Brahman is everything. Brahman, word Brahman has come from Bri, which means the large, the great. Think of the larger, that is Brahman. The largest that you can think of, Brahman is larger than that. Think of the universe, cosmos, think of the subtle universe, think of all the universe that you can. Brahman is larger than that. It can also mean that which grows. Bri has many implications, many meaning. And it is not a theological concept. It's not something like God of, say, the way we believe in Shiva, the way we believe in Krishna. This is something that anyone can realize in meditation, that absolute and pure consciousness alone abides. That alone is, that alone exists. Sarvam hi etat Brahma. Whatever we are seeing is Brahman. Brahman is everything. Everything is not Brahman. This pen is not Brahman. You know, very often people who do not understand Vedanta, they make mistakes in explaining. And worse, when they attack, they attack wrongly. This pen is not Brahman. This microphone is not Brahman. Brahman alone is the underlying reality. Brahman alone has become all this. This apparent reality of the pen, apparent reality of microphone is there because the true reality underlying it is of Brahman. When they say everything is Brahman, they mean to say that Brahman alone exists. Everything else is like a wave in an ocean. Now, when they say that Sarvami etat Brahma, I am Atma Brahma, so I am Atma Chatuspat. This Atman, this self, is Brahman. And this Atman, first, see, there are 3 truths in this statement. If you look at this chat where it's written, all this verily is Brahman, the self. Actually, we should be writing Atman. Atman is Brahman, and Atman has four quarters. There are three statements in one mantra. First, Brahman alone is existence, Brahman alone is reality. I'll request dear viewers to listen to our first talk on Vedanta. There we have discussed how we can see rationally that Brahman alone exists, nothing else exists rationally. And if you chance to read the biography and words of say Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, you will realize that they had this realization not once, all the time. Atman alone exists. Brahman alone exists. Atman is Brahman. So there cannot be any question. Rationally, it has been proven by Shankaracharya. I use Acharya Shankara's arguments to show that. That's given in talk number 1. And the great masters, they have realized it. So how can you question it? And they're very clearly saying you too can experience it. In fact, this is the goal of Vedanta. Vedanta discusses all this so that you can realize it here and now, not after death. In other systems, you can go to their highest, that is heaven, after death. Not in Vedanta. Vedanta says here and now. You have to realize it here and now. And this Atman, so I am Atma. I am Atma, this Atman has four quarters. Chatuspath, path here means legs. Technically, it means legs. But actually, it's more of quarters. We will explain. In our earlier talks, we explained that object, words, and ideas, they are one and the same. In fact, in the previous talk, when we were discussing Om, there also we have discussed, and let us not go on reinventing the wheel. Discussing the same thing again and again is meaningless. In the simplest form, here is this pen. Pen is an object. Pen is a word. A pen is an idea. Idea in my mind. When I see a pen, when I hear the word pen, when I experience that pen, whether it be pen the object, whether it be pen the word, it arouses the idea that is there in my mind, and I get the knowledge of that pen. As far as mind is concerned, objects, words, that is name, and ideas, they are one and the same. It makes no difference. And that is why when you think of something that you love, for example, kids love chocolates. If you give them chocolate, they feel happy. If you just promise chocolate, they feel happy. And if they think of chocolate, they become happy. Because these three are one and the same. A famous expression in India is of pickles. Pickles are sour. If you take pickles, your mouth becomes watery. You start salivating. Now, if you just say pickles, those of you who are from India, you just say pickles, you start salivating. And you think of pickles, you start salivating. What does it imply? That actually pickle the object, pickle the word, and pickle the idea, they are one and the same to the mind. Vedanta takes it one step forward. Not only Vedanta, actually, this comes from very old Greco-Roman rather, and it has been taken up by the Jews, which was later taken by the Christians. In the beginning was Word. The Word was with God, and Word was God. Although Christianity explains word as Jesus, but the old Greco-Roman idea is that ideas and words, they are one and the same. And they have a common word for that, logos. So, Vedanta is not interested in the theory of all these ideas and words and objects. What Vedanta is interested in is that if you can understand the oneness of these three, that objects and words and ideas, they are one and the same. In one stroke, you can throw all these three away. And once you throw these three away, what remains is pure consciousness. Because without pure consciousness, without your mind being there, now we are talking in a simpler term, that is mind. Mind is in a state of turbulence because there is an idea. That idea is externally expressed through words and is externally available through objects. They are one and the same. Once you understand the unity of these three, you can throw these three away absolutely. Those of you who are more interested in understanding how you can throw this away, we'll request them to listen to our Raj Yoga talks, which we covered just 3-4 weeks ago. It's available there in the playlist, Raj Yoga, where it says that every impulse coming to the mind is like a disturbance. And technical term for this is vritti. Goal of life is to quieten these vritti, to still these vrittis permanently. When you quieten the vrittis, when your mind becomes absolutely calm, you have thrown away this existential world where we have the ideas, where we have the words, and where we have the objects. Goal of Vedanta, in discussing that Om has become, Om is everything, Brahman is everything, Atman is Brahman. All this is the external world that is superimposed on us. Superimpose is like putting on the masks. Nowadays, of course, we don't have dances, etc. with masks. Kuchipudi dance and Kathakali, I think. I'm not very sure. I'm not very good in the knowledge of dances. They put on masks while dancing. And this was the concept during Roman time, who loved all these circuses and dances. And they used to put on masks and they used to call it persona. Persona, the mask, from which the word personality has come. Nowadays, you don't put on the masks, you put makeup. So the concept has gone. This world, the external world, it is the persona on pure consciousness. And this pure consciousness, looking at that persona through its own persona of mind, loves it, hates it, etc. See, just think, just imagine. Imagine the irony of it. You alone exist. You exist as subject, me. You exist as object, say the microphone. Microphone is a mask on pure consciousness. Microphone is the persona on pure consciousness. It is being perceived by me, the pure consciousness, on which my mind is the persona, my mind is the mask. Pure consciousness is looking at pure consciousness. There's the mask, there's the lens through which it's seeing. And it is looking at itself by keeping a persona there. It is the unraveling of this mystery, tearing away of this mystery, that we have this Mandukya Karika, Vedanta in general, Mandukya Karika in particular. Those of you who are interested, in being a brave heart, in tearing away the masks. Please continue with these classes. Now, if you are not that brave heart, if you believe in taking this different kinds of drums and dhol, kartal, and go on singing Hare Ram, well, then these talks are not meant for you. And those of you who have taken admissions in our Indian spiritual heritage classes, for them, of course, it's a mandatory. You will have to listen to these things, even if you do not understand. Vedanta says that once you can understand that these three are one and these are persona, you can drive them away in one stroke. Now, don't ask me whether or not I am convinced of this. Theoretically, yes. Practically, no. So then they can just go on talking about Brahman, their Sarvam Yetat Brahman. For example, you will, if you chance to read any of the sacred books of any religion, they will be talking about God. For them, God is real. In Islam, Allah is real. For a Vaishnava devotee, Vishnu is real. Krishna is real. Why come down to Atman? Acharya Shankara says very beautifully, I am presenting things in as simple way as possible. Says, the knowledge of Brahman is quite vague. Vague in the sense one cannot understand, because knowledge of Brahman comes to us or is given to us indirectly through this means, through that means. So it's very difficult for us to grasp. But as far as self is concerned, everyone is conscious of it. Even a baby is conscious of it. Even a baby knows that she is hungry. A child, he knows he wants to go out and play. A child asserts, I want this. I was reading some jokes about some kids. So one gentleman wrote that he has a 3-year-old daughter, very adorable, and she loves her grandpa. And the day she came to know that her grandpa was the father of her daddy, she started crying and throwing tantrums and told her papa to go and change his papa right away, and said, you cannot have my grandpa as your father. You go and get a different father. And so funny. But assertion, daddy, I am telling you, go change your papa. Without realizing that papas cannot be changed like that. Now, because we understand ourselves, we know ourselves, we have a very clear sense of ourselves. That is why this Upanishad comes down to our level, holds our hand, and start taking us upward. This is the beauty of the Upanishads. Dear listeners, dear viewers, dear students, I have gone through scriptures. I know scriptures. This is what I have been doing for last anything else other than being in scriptures. And before that, of course, I'm a monk of 40 years. I have lived in scriptures. This idea that take hold of someone's fingers or hand and lead that person slowly upward, you don't find in any, none of the scriptures, not even in Indian scriptures, who are the masters of spirituality. Forget about other religions. Whenever we think of religion, whenever we talk with religion, first thing they'll say that in the beginning was God. And that is how it begins. Not Vedanta. Vedanta begins, here you are. It always begins. See how realistic, what a realistic approach. It's a pity that people don't study Vedanta. Why? Why they don't study? Yeah, Vedanta requires head. And the arguments that Vedanta presents seems to make your head explode. Just explode. And as I said, they're so counterintuitive. All your beliefs, your own existence is blown away. Forget about your beliefs. Forget about the beliefs of uh, your society, your religion, your God. Forget that they are secondary. The very idea of you yourself is blown away. So now, when they say that Swayam Atman Chatuspad, previously also we mentioned, says that Atman has four quarters, four parts, four legs. When we think of a chair, we think of four chairs. When we think of, say, an animal, we think of four legs. When they talk about Atman having four parts, these are not four distinct parts. They actually, it is just to make us understand it is not intrinsic but imagined. The parts is a very important term. The parts are not intrinsic, like cow. The four legs are intrinsic. The very gene of cow decides that it will have four legs. The quarters are imagined. Think of a coin. Now, we in India have 1 rupee. You can imagine any number of parts to it. Imagine 100 parts, it will have 1 paisa. And if you have 2 parts, 50 paise. 4 parts. Earlier times we used to say 4 annas. Actually, in India, although we came up with the decimal system, 0, however, our currency and counting system was based on quarters, 4. So we had 4 and 16 and 64. 1 rupee was 64, and from there it came to 16 annas, and from 16 annas came down further down 1 paisa. 4 into 4 into 4. And interestingly, we gave the decimal system to the world, but it was not adopted. I don't know why. I find it pretty interesting, very interesting, that decimal system is such a beautiful system. Americans, of course, have not adopted. They still talk in miles and pounds, and I don't know. Such a beautiful system, so easy. But maybe because when Aryabhatta and all his disciples worked out the decimal system, much before that, the quarter system was ingrained in the Indian system. Now, when we were growing, when I was young, that is in 60s, the concept of char ana and ath ana and sawa, that is 1 quarter, we still say that when you talk of, say, 315, we say sawatin, sade teen, like that, all over the country. So they say that this Atman has 4 quarters, and these 4 quarters are not intrinsic but imagined. Now, if it's an imagined thing, those of you who are slightly elderly, that means those of you who might have crossed maybe 40 in India, I'm talking about the Indians. Of course, you just have to change the terms, and those who are listening from abroad will understand that. So, here in India, we had the famous char ana, a coin which was 25 paisa, 25 cents. Now you take 1 quarter, it's 25 paisa. You take 2, it becomes half. Uh, and you have 3 quarters. 1 quarter, 2 quarter, 3 quarter. Then comes the fourth. Fourth is not a quarter. It's so difficult to understand, but it's so simple. I'll tell you my personal experience. When I was a young brahmachari means novice, and when I was being taught this subject by a really great Vedantin, Srimad Swami Mokshadanji Maharaj, I learned from him. And when he was explaining, I just could not understand this. When you talk of 1 quarter, it is 1 quarter, mind it. When you say of 2 quarters, it is two quarters. When you say of 3 quarters, it is 3 quarters. When you say 4 quarters, it is no more 4 quarters, it is full. If you say 4 quarters, you are making a fundamental mistake. When you say 4 quarters, it's a word play. It's kind of a word play that confuses people. Actually, it is full. If you go to the market, particularly if you went to the market in earlier times, they would say 4 ana, 12 ana. No one will say 16 ana. They'll say 1 rupiah. 1 rupee. It becomes complete. In this, Sarvam Yetat Brahma, I am Atma Brahma, so I am Atma Chatuspat. When they say Chatuspat, they mean to say that these 4 quarters, they are not intrinsic. They are imagined. And as we mentioned, what is it at the micro level, at our level? Same thing is at the macro level. Starting mantra number 3, this idea will continue. These 4 states that we are mentioning, first of these states is known as waking state. The term in Sanskrit is Jagrat. Second is dream, Swapna. Third is dreamless, Sushupti. These 3 states are represented by the 3 syllables A, U, Ma, Om, which was discussed in the previous talk. Whenever you have something, you also have the idea of absence of that something. Abhav. The technical term is abhav, absence. So if there is sound, there has to be a state where there is no sound. That is soundlessness. Uma, Om. A comes out from the throat, U rolls, Ma ends with the lips. All the words that there are locked within these 3 letters, A, Uma. Every sound is locked within Om. But since there is sound, there has to be a state where there is no sound, soundlessness. That is the 4th state, Turiya. But is it really a state? No, it cannot be. Because soundlessness is that state where it is uniform. When there is uniform, how can you say that it is a state? The moment it breaks into A, the moment it transforms into U, moment it transforms into Ma, these are states, these are transformations. When the whole thing is a complete solid mass, you cannot say it's a state. It is pure existence. So what follows after Om, the silence? This silence, that is the 4th as far as Om is concerned. Similarly, we have these 3 states: waking, the sleep and dreamless. As during sleep, you have dream state, waking, dream, and dreamless. So basically, in English, you have in English we have waking and sleep. And sleep again has two, with dream and dreamless. Now, the scientists they have come up with REM sleep and so many things. They are coming up with this and that. Fundamental things they miss out. The way there is silence with Om, just like that, there is a fourth, which is not really a state. So in the title, we have given the four states, but this fourth is not really a state. This is the unified mass from which the other three emerges. Jagrat, Swapna, Shushupti. Waking, dream, dreamless. These three are superimposition actually. These are not really states, mind it. Just like the four quarters. When you say one quarter, it is not an intrinsic thing. It's not a real thing. It is not like the leg of a chair. It is something that you superimpose to understand one quarter, one fourth. And as far as the fourth is concerned, it is not even a state because it's a solid thing. So this is the very important concept that we mentioned. The four states. These four states are at the micro state with me, with the self. These are also at the cosmic level. And these are with Om too, because as we mentioned, objects and words are same. Objects are at the individual level, objects are at the collective level, and both of these are represented by Om. Om is followed by the fourth, silence. Atman, the self, has three states: waking, dream, dreamless. Fourth is Turiya. This Turiya, the fourth state, where there is no superimposition, is same as Brahman, which has no transformation in the form of this world, in the form of this subtle world, and in the form of this God. This will be explained further. I'm just trying to give you the picture, the overall picture of this whole thing. This Turiya, as we mentioned, this is pure consciousness, and hence it is the best way to express Turiya is silence. Silence is the only way. Yes, Seema Rajkondavar, you are absolutely right. Can we say that silence is the only substratum on which the three states dance? Absolutely. So, so Atman has no parts. Atman never has no part. The goal and purpose of Turiya, as Seema ji has mentioned, to reach that state of silence. This is not the silence when we become silent and we are not speaking any word. When we are talking of silence, each letter is in capital that represents silence that follows Om. That is, all the words have been exhausted. Goal of Vedanta is to reach that state. While discussing Om, we had mentioned how Swami Vivekananda also says that when a yogi goes into meditation, the last thing he hears is the undulated sound Om. It sounds like a gong. And when you return from that state of samadhi down, the first thing you become aware of is Om. Auma Om is the universe. The silence beyond Om. That is pure existence. You call it Brahman, call it Atman, call it God, does not matter. The idea has to be understood. So, in these three states, that is waking, dream, and dreamless, mind is aware. I know I am awake. When I dream, I get up, I know I dreamed. When I have a dreamless sleep, deep sleep, when I come out of it, I know. Oh, I slept so well, I remember nothing. I was so full of bliss. Turiya, you cannot be aware of it because mind itself goes still. Unless mind goes still, as Seemaji mentioned and I explained, in ordinary silence, mind is still working. You don't have external sound, but you have internal sound. When we say that silence that precedes Om, after Om, or rather, from where Om is born, that silence is where mind itself gets stilled, completely stilled. Normally, when we say silence, we mean not speaking a word. Here, silence, when we are talking about silence that follows Om, it means where all mental activities have gone totally silent. That is Turiya. Silence, that silence is not within Om. Turiya is not a state. Turiya cannot be understood by mind. You can only be one with Turiya because you are Turiya. Waking state is the state of becoming. Dream, you become something, as we shall see. And dreamless, you become something, not Turiya. See, I requested not to express your wisdom and knowledge, but Milan Chatterjee, why you have to mention? Why can't you listen silently? I don't know how do you get this energy to write all this while listening. And if you understand everything, why listen to these talks? So you become aware of waking state, you become aware of dream state, you also become aware of dreamless. You don't become aware of Turiya, the fourth. This, in brief, is the fourth state, and it's only by the study of the three states that is waking, dream, and dreamless. When you study this well, when you understand this well, then you get an idea of the fourth. And that is where this mantra number 345, these three will be explaining the three states. What is waking state, what is dream state, and what is dreamless state? And to remind you, they are not forcing these ideas on us. They're just explaining the obvious. Once you can understand what these three states are, how they are related with each other, then you realize that, oh, these three are leading us to the fourth, which is Turiya. The goal of Vedanta being Turiya. Turiya is the goal of Vedanta. This Turiya is a silence, as Seema Madam said. This Turiya is Om. That is silence that follows Om. And this Turiya is Atman, which has no superimposition. And this Turiya is Brahman, which has no superimposition. Superimposition, that is mask. This we will take up. What exactly is the waking state? How Atman behaves in that waking state. How Atman, as if, gets transformed. Actually, it doesn't get transformed, it gets the superimposition. And it experiences the external world through its various openings. So our time is up, and once again, I'll say that I hope whatever I spoke was clear to you. Basically, it's very simple. It says that whatever is there, there is only Brahman, as the sages saw in meditation. And because we cannot understand Brahman, they talk about the self, Atman. This Atman is one with Brahman. This Atman is of has four states. These four states are not real, not intrinsic, but imagined. From the next talk onward, we will study the three states. So, and even after listening to this talk, if you don't understand, please send us mails to ishrkm as I have mentioned. We will take up your question to explain. And those of you who have taken admission in our Indian Spiritual Heritage course, both in English and Bengali, we request you to listen to these talks from talk number 1. This is the fourth talk. Thank you so much. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram Krishna.